Welcome, everybody, to another episode of CPAC Now, America Uncanceled. We have one of the greatest guests in this country that you're going to interview.
Ian Pryor. He's the president for Fight for Our Schools. I got to tell you, he's been doing the Lord's work out in Loudoun County, but we know this goes bigger than Loudoun County. It's a national movement of getting these parents who were never involved in politics to fight against their woke school boards, to fight against critical race theory and all the craziness that they're pushing with this leftist radical agenda. So he's really been at the forefront of this.
Ian is great. Of course, he worked for President Trump at the DOJ.
That's right.
A really smart guy.
And we know the DOJ now going after the parents, calling them domestic terrorists. I mean, this is where we're at. Well, the National School Board Association literally going after parents who are speaking up against these school boards, basically saying, FBI needs to investigate.
And as we all know, Terry McAuliffe said in the debate with Glenn Youngkin here in the Commonwealth of Virginia that he didn't think parents had a right to know what books their kids were reading and what they were learning in the classroom. Folks, this is not an accident. This is a purposeful effort to separate us from our children, to say that the state understands better how to raise our children than we do. And what does that come from?
That comes from Karl Marx. That was a tricky question you were going to ask me there. But hey,
I wish it came from Groucho Marx, but it came from Karl Marx, and it's incredibly serious. And Senator Hawley's been a real hero on this. We have some voices in Congress that are just saying enough is enough. Let's show a little sound from Senator Hawley taking on a DAG at the Senate hearing yesterday, Lisa Monaco. Listen to this.
With due respect, it didn't make it quite clear. It doesn't define those terms, nor does it define harassment or intimidation. It talks about violence. I think we can agree that violence shouldn't be condoned or looked aside from in any way, swept under the rug at all. But harassment and intimidation, what did those terms mean in the context of a local school board meeting? I mean, this seems to, in the First Amendment context, we talk about the chill to speech. If this isn't a deliberate attempt to chill parents from showing up at school board meetings for their elected school boards, I don't know what is. I mean, I'm not aware of anything like this in American history. We're talking about the FBI. You're using the FBI to intervene in school board meetings. That's extraordinary.
Look, our Republican leaders are standing up against the critical race theory. Here at American Conservative Union, we are doing the same. Our goal is to make sure that parents continue to have a voice and make sure that this is why these local elections matter. Make sure we get school board members that are going to be not teacher union endorsed, but what about parent and student endorsed?
That's right.
I also want to bring up, Matt, Governor Ron DeSantis had a fabulous tweet on basically pushing back on the Department of Justice, saying Attorney General Garland is weaponizing the DOJ by using the FBI to pursue concerned parents and silence them through intimidation. DeSantis tweeted on Tuesday, Florida will defend the free speech rights of its citizens and will not allow federal agents to squelch dissent.
It's great. And Governor DeSantis, if it wasn't for the Republican governors in these big mega red states, I kind of don't know where the country would be. And DeSantis is doing this while the sad news came out that his beautiful wife and they have 3 beautiful little kids. His wife has breast cancer, so we should all keep her in our prayers, but it doesn't seem like it's going to detain him from this most important of fights that we're in. Yeah,
we'll be praying for you, Casey, and we love you. And I know it's a tough time, but we'll get through this together. But just, I think, Matt, we're going to listen in on this interview, my one-on-one interview with Ian Pryor, when we come back. This is CPAC Now, America Uncanceled, and joining me, Ian Pryor, president of Fight for Our Schools, co-founder of Daily Malarkey, and former deputy director of public affairs for the Department of Justice. Ian, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
There's a lot going on. I can't even tell you. The work that you're doing is so incredibly important in terms of not only getting rid of some of these very woke school board members, but now we've seen the story come out where Attorney General Merrick Garland has instructed the FBI to mobilize against parents who oppose critical race theory and who are showing up and peacefully protesting and having their voices heard in the school board meetings. What do you make of these I think, extreme actions being taken by the Department of Justice and the FBI.
Well, it's crazy. When I was at the Department of Justice, and as you know, we were focused on things like going after MS-13. Now it appears we're focused on going after moms of 13-year-olds. It is absolutely absurd what the Justice Department is trying to do here. Their memo is so vague and overbroad. Of course, if there are plots to commit violence against people, absolutely that should be investigated. But what we're talking about here, he's talking about harassment and intimidation. What does that mean? Is a mean tweet harassment? Is intimidation going to a school board member and giving a passionate speech? It is so scary to see that the federal government is taking these steps for something that is really a local issue. If there are threats, if there are incidents of violence, or somebody punches someone, that's a local issue for the local police or the sheriffs to get involved with. This is nothing more than a political attempt to silence parents that are really rising up everywhere on a grassroots level to fight for their children.
This follows the National School Board Association, where they wanted to request to classify these protests as, quote, domestic terrorism. Is that what you're seeing? You're literally going to these meetings. Ian, what do you see on the ground? Is this what you call domestic terrorism?
What I see is moms and dads that are finally stepping up and exercising their First Amendment rights. They are passionate. We have seen through COVID, sort of the curriculum, schools being closed, and parents starting to realize that, hey, school board elections are important. Going to school board meetings and making your voices heard is important. Instead, what the government should be doing is encouraging this kind of participation. I don't see domestic terrorists. I see moms and dads that are fighting for their kids every step of the way. And I see people that feel trapped. They feel trapped because on one hand, they may not be able to afford private schools. On the other hand, they may not have the time to homeschool. So what do? You send your kids to public schools. And if you don't get a seat at the table and you don't have a fair process in going out there and discussing these issues, then, that's a sense of hopelessness. But I think parents are now starting to have hope in their voice.
I got to tell you, I think your dog is really upset about it too, Ian. But let's go into the fact that Loudoun County has been ground zero for all this critical race theory debates that we're seeing happening between the school boards. Are you also seeing this at the national level? Are you seeing other districts, other parents come to you and say, hey, we like how you all are organizing in Loudoun County. What can we do in our districts? What can we do in our cities and towns?
Yeah, absolutely. For the past 6 months, we've been calling for accountability here in Loudoun County Public Schools, and we've gotten national attention for it. And the result has been people reaching out to us and asking how they can do it. And I say my 3 buzzwords are investigate, communicate, and activate. And go out there, send FOIA requests, find out what is happening in your schools. How your school board members are conducting themselves, communicate it to, the public through the media or, through communications with other parents, and get involved, get activated, go out, start an organization, push back, do it in a substantive way, use your First Amendment rights. Don't email the school board hateful messages. Those are things that, 1, are inappropriate, and 2, are just going to be used against you. But make sure that you are making your voice heard, and you will ultimately get results.
So we know that in Loudoun County, there was a case, a Loudoun Circuit Court judge denied a motion to dismiss this voter petition to remove a school board member and disqualified this Commonwealth's attorney from prosecuting the case. Can you give us an update of what does this case mean for the fight for these Loudoun County parents to help remove these leftist school board members?
Well, I think the parents are ecstatic. This whole time, we've been asking for a seat at the table. We've been asking for a fair process. And we face an uphill battle. The way things work in Virginia, you go out, you collect signatures to recall a school board member or a public official, but you have to go to court first. And once you get to court, it's the Commonwealth attorney, your local prosecutor, that ultimately takes the case on behalf of the petitioners. And we were dealing with a Commonwealth attorney that, quite frankly, was arguing with us every step of the way. In neighboring Fairfax, the Commonwealth attorney dismissed the petitioner's case despite the judge allowing it to go forward. So yesterday we had 3 motions. One was the school board member's motion to dismiss that was denied. Two was our organization, Fight for Schools, motion to intervene. That was allowed, and that is historic. We were given a seat at the table to have our day in court and participate in this case. And three, probably most importantly, the judge disqualified the Commonwealth attorney based on the fact that, given everything that's going on, given, her role with some of these school board members, parents would never feel that they got a fair shake if they did not have an independent prosecutor that was, litigating this case. And that's what we got. And I think that we are ecstatic to see that, parents are going to have their day in court.
And you mentioned, Ian, about the Commonwealth attorney being basically backed by George Soros. So you're talking about this big liberal money that supports these types of attorneys. Is that the case?
Yeah, that's the case. That was the case in Fairfax County when the prosecutor dismissed it. That was the case in Loudoun County. But, I think the judge made a ruling that, makes a lot of sense. If you want to have people confident in the result, then you need to make sure that you have an absolutely independent, nonpartisan prosecutor that's going to follow the evidence, that is not someone that is looking at this from a political lens, but is looking at this from a legal lens. And, I am just so happy that, we got a fair process, and, we look forward to however this shakes out. But I think that Loudoun County parents and parents across America can look at this as a big win for parents everywhere.
We know that Democrats are real concerned about this governor's race. We know Terry McAuliffe is trying to separate himself from Biden's low approval numbers and trying to be a little more independent from Biden. But we saw in last week's Virginia's gubernatorial race, Terry McAuliffe, the Democrat candidate, giving a very interesting response about the parents' roles in our schools and in our communities. Let's take a listen.
Books, Glenn, not to be knowledge about it, also take them off the shelves. And I'm not going to let parents come into schools and actually take books out and make their own decision.
You vetoed it.
So, yeah, I stopped the bill that I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach. But, I get really tired.
Ian, what are your thoughts? When you talk to the parents out there and they listen to this disconnect of what Terry McAuliffe has said about how parents really shouldn't have a role in our schools, what do they say?
I think it was a shocking moment in that debate. And, whether that ends up being the game changer or not, it's missing the moment here in Virginia. I mean, parents are looking for somebody to have their back. And for, Terry McAuliffe to come out and say that, it's clear that he does not. That he does not believe that parents should have a role in educating their children. And nobody's saying that parents should micromanage teachers and how teachers teach their classrooms. But what we are saying is that we need to have a role in the overall how schools are run in our community. And, for him to say that, parents shouldn't have that role, given everything that's gone on over the past 2 years, is a not only a big mistake, but I think he's being honest and he's telling you exactly what he thinks, which again, he is missing the moment here in Virginia.
So I think you're a parent, I'm a parent. I think parents really want to be partners with the teachers and with the administration in their schools. They want to help be involved in a way that the teachers are supported by the parents. But when you have these rogue teachers, when you have these rogue school board and administration pushing what I would say is something that a lot of parents don't feel comfortable with and not including them in the process and telling the students, don't tell your parents. I mean, it doesn't work. I mean, that formula doesn't work. What are your thoughts?
No, and parents are the primary educators, and we pay taxes to public schools, and we allow our kids to go to those public schools, trusting teachers, trusting the administration, trusting our elected officials. And there are a lot of great teachers out there that will work with parents and that are not on board with, the state of Virginia's sort of woke curriculum and Loudoun County or Fairfax County. But, ultimately, they only have so much power. A lot of things they will tell you it's coming down from the county. So, if parents want to make a change, they need to look to their school boards. They need to look to their statewide elections, their local elections, because ultimately that is where change is going to come.
I think what I think it's going to be interesting to watch. Do you believe that CRT and everything that we're seeing with these school board, these fights, does this translate to victory for Republicans in the midterm elections? Do you think that this is something that you're hearing across the board that's become such a dominant issue that could really impact the races in 2022?
Certainly. I mean, you look around at what's happening, and I've had dozens of conversations with people that say, oh, this is just to win elections, and, you're a Republican operative and you're just doing this. Like, no, that's not it at all. I mean, what you're seeing is truly parents organizing, and smart politicians and smart candidates will meet that moment, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. Look, a Democrat could come out and say, listen, I want to listen to the parents. I want to see exactly what's going on. Maybe we need to make some changes. And, that would be a beneficial position for them to take. And I don't think that I've seen that yet. So I would advise any candidate out there, regardless of your party, go talk to parents. Don't dismiss them. Don't call them conspiracy theorists or domestic terrorists. Have conversations with them. If here in Loudoun County, if the head of the board of supervisors or the head of the school board had reached out to us over the past 6 months, we may not be in this situation, but nobody has done that. Instead, they've dug in their heels and they decided that the parents are the enemy and they're going to fight back. And that's why we are here today.
Ian Pryor, thank you for standing up for our students. Thank you for standing up for our parents. And thank you for standing up for educational freedom. We just admire the work that you're doing. We support what you're doing. Where can people go to help your organization?
They can go to fightforschools.com, and we need all the help we can get now. We are in this fight. We literally have a seat at the table in court, which means we've got to pay for legal fees, and we're going to see this thing through. So we appreciate all the help we can get.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
A great interview with Ian Pryor, Mercy. He is someone who's a real freedom fighter. He's out there on the front lines. I know we're all rooting him on. We'll put on the screen how you can help him, but CPAC is standing alongside all these parents in this fight against this sewage called critical race theory that's now in our schools.
It could be just criminal, too.
Criminal
Let me
race
tell you.
theory, yeah.
But hey, Matt, I want to bring up a story. It popped in the Washington Post earlier today saying,
You're reading the Washington Post?
look, I read everything. Okay,
well,
let me give you a
okay with
hint.
that.
If you're going to go into comms or into press, you got to read everything. Left, right, center. You got to know what everyone's thinking. Okay, that's just the way it goes. But this story came out saying hospital system says it will deny transplants to the unvaccinated, quote, in almost all situations. This is happening in Colorado. They're basically saying that it's because these unvaccinated people, these patients, are much more likely to die if they get COVID. I think they forgot to mention that vaccinated people can get COVID too, but that's a whole different story.
I think what this really means is they're saying that if you're unvaccinated or that you have survived Chinese corona and you've gotten your health back, that somehow you're irresponsible, and so therefore you're no longer worthy to be on this list. These lists of transplants, as anybody who has this in their family knows, it's a very tough thing to get on, and it's life or death. And now they're saying that you don't care enough about your life, as if like same as smoking or something else, to get this transplant.
Doesn't this remind you of Rahm Emanuel when they were all talking about it was his
quality
brother,
of life.
his brother, the quality of life and death panels and who gets to choose, like who is going to get what assistance, what helps. And so what they're trying to do is really trying to target these unvaccinated people. And we've seen time and time again, whether it be the governor of New York and all these other ones saying, we're going to fire you if you're unvaccinated. It is putting an enormous amount of stress on individuals and on families that are being forced to get vaccinated instead of making that decision a decision between themselves and their healthcare professional.
Yeah, I sometimes wake up and I don't think I'm in my own country anymore. This is how quickly we have lost ground in the cause of freedom. And it's lost all common sense, and the media won't cover it. But good people know in their souls that something's wrong, that this is not how you treat people. You treat people with respect. You let people make decisions for themselves. And now this whole idea of saying that one population is going to kill the other population because they're not taking certain precautions with this virus, that's all this desire to split us apart and to make it so that we can't even go through our daily life without this being a cause of division. And I tell you what, I never would have thought that the coronavirus is our number one fight, but it seems like it's our number one fight. But you know what happened? One good thing happened about the coronavirus is a lot of us aren't watching TV too much anymore. We're watching what our kids read and what they watch. And that's why we know about critical race theory. Because the parents were at home watching these Zoom calls and saying, what the hell are they telling you? Is that your teacher?
Right.
And all of a sudden, the parents started realizing what was happening in the classroom, and voila, we know what's happening.
As Lucia would say, Dad, don't use the H word.
Hockey stick.
Exactly. All right, thanks so much for joining us tonight. We'll see you tomorrow.